I woke up to my phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. Not ringing, not one alert, but a relentless, choking flood. Buzz after buzz after buzz, like something was trying to claw its way into my morning before I was fully conscious enough to stop it. When I finally opened my eyes, the screen was already lit. 127 notifications, then 143, then 211. My name, Delia Williams, was everywhere. Tagged, mentioned, screenshot, shared. The first post I saw stopped my breath mid-inhale. RIP to my relationship. He cheated and broke my heart. A photo followed, a photo of us. Last Christmas, his arm around my waist, my head tipped toward his shoulder, smiling, real, intimate, weaponized. The caption kept going. I never cheated. I didn't argue online. I'm devastated, but at least now I know the truth. Hashtag cheater exposed. Hashtag narcissist alert. The name attached to the post was Cassian Rodriguez, my boyfriend of 4 years. My hands went cold. I scrolled. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Same message, same photo, same lie. He hadn't just accused me of cheating. He'd broadcast it. He tagged my workplace. He tagged my sister. He tagged my mother, who still types with one finger and believes anything she reads online if it looks official enough. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, sheets tangled around my legs. The room suddenly unfamiliar, like I'd woken up in someone else's life. I hadn't cheated. Not once, not emotionally, not physically, not in any version of reality. The night before, we'd argued, yes, about money, about another maxed out credit card, about designer bags and budgets, and whether building a future meant pretending limits didn't exist. He'd stormed out, said he was going to his friend Vanessa's place. Normal couple conflict, or so I thought. This was nuclear. My phone rang. Ted, my boss. I didn't answer. Then my mother, then my sister. Messages poured in faster than I could read them. Is this true? What did you do? How could you embarrass us like this? I didn't post. I didn't defend myself. I didn't type a single word. I just stared at the screen, chest tight, pulse roaring in my ears, and realized something with terrifying clarity. Cassian hadn't just ended our relationship. He'd declared war on my reputation, and he had no idea how expensive that decision was about to become. Cassian and I didn't start out like this. That's the part people always forget when a relationship explodes publicly, how ordinary it was in the beginning. How gentle, how convincing. We met 4 years earlier at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. Loud restaurant, long table, everyone talking over each other. Cassian sat across from me, sleeves rolled to his elbows, laughing too hard at jokes that weren't that funny. I noticed his confidence first. Not the loud kind, but the practiced kind. The kind that comes from being admired often enough that you start expecting it. He asked for my number before dessert arrived. Texted me before I even got home. Our first dates were easy. Drinks after work, weekend brunches, long conversations where he listened just closely enough to feel present. He told me early that he admired ambition, that he wanted a partner, not a dependent, that he respected women who had their own lives. I believed him. By year 1, we were living together. By year 2, we were talking about buying a place someday. He liked nice things, good restaurants, designer clothes, trips that looked good on social media. I worked hard. I made decent money. I wasn't reckless, but I wasn't afraid of enjoying it either. At first, his spending didn't register as a problem. He framed it as taste, as standards, as knowing his worth. I told myself it balanced out. The cracks didn't show all at once. They arrived quietly. A comment here, a joke there. You're really wearing that again? I just don't want us to look mismatched. Everyone upgrades eventually. When I hesitated over big purchases, he'd roll his eyes. When I suggested saving, he'd call it fear-based thinking. He liked the idea of a future, just not the discipline required to build one. Still, I stayed, because when things were good, they were very good. He was charming with my family, attentive in public, generous with compliments when other people were watching. He talked about marriage like it was inevitable, like a prize we were walking toward together. And I wanted to believe that. By year 4, the financial conversations became unavoidable. Credit cards, balances, patterns I couldn't unsee anymore. The night before the posts, I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused him of anything. I'd simply said we needed to talk about budgets if we were serious about a future. He didn't hear concern. He heard control. He accused me of trying to limit him, of judging him, of changing the rules now that things were getting real. You're not my parent, he snapped, grabbing his jacket. I'm going to Vanessa's. I need space from this. I let him go. I went to bed alone, convinced the morning would bring apologies, cooler heads, a reset. Instead, I woke up to my face attached to a lie that had already gone viral. Looking back, the warning signs were there. His need to win every narrative, his obsession with how things looked instead of how they were, his habit of turning discomfort into drama and blame. But love has a way of softening red flags into background noise. Until it doesn't. Until someone decides your reputation is a fair price to pay for their wounded pride. The first warning sign hadn't been loud. It didn't come with shouting or slammed doors or ultimatums. It came wrapped in sarcasm. A week after we moved in together, I opened the mail and found a new credit card statement tucked between utility bills. A balance I didn't recognize. Charges from boutiques I'd never stepped foot in. When I asked him about it, Cassian laughed like I'd made a harmless mistake. "Relax," he said, waving it off. "I've got it handled." Handled meant minimum payments. Handled meant silence. Handled meant I stopped asking questions because every time I did, I became the problem. He hated the word budget, said it killed romance, said it was what people used when they were scared of success, said money should feel fluid, not restrictive. But fluid turned into slippery. He started framing my concern as control. If I asked where the money went, I was interrogating him. If I suggested slowing down, I was limiting his potential. If I hesitated, I was acting brand new. And then there were the comparisons. So-and-so's girlfriend never questions him. My ex trusted me. Vanessa says couples who nickel and dime each other don't last. Vanessa was always in the background, his sounding board, his echo chamber. Anytime I asked for accountability, he went elsewhere for approval. Anytime I drew a boundary, he reframed it as abuse. Still, I stayed calm. I learned to choose my words carefully, to soften concerns with reassurances, to lead with we instead of you. I thought compromise would meet me halfway. Instead, it taught him that pressure worked. By the time the argument happened, the one that triggered everything, I wasn't angry. I was tired. I laid the statements out on the kitchen table, not dramatically, not accusatory, just facts, numbers, a future that didn't add up. "We don't have to stop living," I said quietly, "but we do need a plan." He stared at the table, jaw tight. "This is who I am," he replied. "If you can't handle that, maybe that's your issue." That was the moment something shifted. Not because he was wrong about money, but because he was willing to risk us to avoid responsibility. He didn't threaten to leave. He just grabbed his keys and said, "I need space." Space apparently meant strategy. Because somewhere between my kitchen and Vanessa's couch, Cassian decided the fastest way to regain control wasn't conversation. It was destruction. I didn't respond to the posts. That choice wasn't noble. It was instinct. Every cell in my body wanted to defend itself, to correct the lie, to explain the truth, to scream into the void that I hadn't done anything wrong. My fingers hovered over the screen more than once, heat rushing to my face, pulse hammering like I was about to step into traffic. But something colder and steadier cut through the noise. Engaging would only feed him. So instead of typing, I started documenting. I screenshot every post, every caption, every comment where he doubled down, adding details, inventing context, encouraging people to hold cheaters accountable. I watched friends of friends pile on, strangers too, people who didn't know me, didn't know us, didn't care about facts, only outrage. Some tagged my employer again, others tagged clients. A few sent direct messages asking if the accusations were true. I didn't answer. I created folders, by platform, by date, by escalation. My phone rang again. Ted. This time I answered. "Delia," he said, voice tight. Professional strain wrapped around every syllable. "HR is concerned. These posts are spreading. They're tagging the company." "They're false," I said. There was a pause, not disbelief, worse, uncertainty. "I need you to come in tomorrow morning," he continued. "Bring anything you have, documentation, context. We just need to understand what's happening." When the call ended, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that Cassian hadn't just lied. He had aimed the lie precisely where it would hurt most. That night, my mother called, crying, asking what she'd done wrong raising me. My sister texted a paragraph I couldn't bring myself to read until hours later. I didn't sleep. Around midnight, I made another call, one I hadn't planned on making until circumstances forced my hand. "Nathan," I said when he answered, "I need your professional opinion, not your emotional one." Nathan and I had gone to college together. He was a defamation attorney now. Precise, clinical, allergic to nonsense. I sent him everything. Screenshots, tags, timelines. He didn't respond for 10 minutes. Then my phone rang. "He just handed you a lottery ticket," he said flatly. "What?" "This is textbook defamation, per se. Nathan continued. False accusations of infidelity, publicly published, targeted at your employer, with malicious intent. My chest tightened. How serious? With workplace implications, he said. 6 figures. Easy. Possibly more if your employment is affected. I sat down on the edge of the bed. He can't just do this, I whispered. He already did, Nathan replied. Now the question is whether you let it go, or you hold him accountable. By noon the next day, I had officially retained Nathan. By mid-afternoon, cease and desist letters were drafted. By close of business, we filed a formal defamation lawsuit seeking $200,000 in damages. I still hadn't spoken a single word publicly. Cassian, meanwhile, posted again, and again, and again. What he didn't understand, what he couldn't see past his anger, was that every new lie wasn't protecting him. It was documenting intent, and it was making the consequences inevitable. The HR meeting was scheduled for 8:30 a.m. I arrived early, not because I wanted to, but because sitting still at home felt unbearable. The office lobby smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner, familiar in a way that usually grounded me. That morning, it felt like a place I might be quietly exiled from. I sat with my folder on my lap, printed screenshots, timestamps, copies of the cease and desist, the lawsuit filing. Evidence stacked neatly, like order was the only thing keeping my chest from caving in. When Shannon from HR called my name, I stood on legs that felt slightly detached from the rest of my body. The room was too bright. Ted was already there. He didn't smile, not unkindly, just carefully. They'd printed the posts. Dozens of pages spread across the table. My face, his words, comments from strangers calling me a liar, a fraud, someone they'd never trust professionally. Shannon spoke first. Delia, we need to understand what's happening here. These are serious allegations. I slid my folder forward. I haven't cheated, I said. My voice was steady. I noticed that before anything else. Not once. These accusations are retaliation. For what? Ted asked. For asking him to discuss financial responsibility, I replied. We argued about money. He left. This was the response. Shannon reviewed the documents carefully. Her fingers paused on the cease and desist. The lawsuit. So you're suing him, she said. Yes. On what grounds? Defamation, per se. There was a silence that stretched just long enough to feel dangerous. And you're confident these claims are false? Ted asked. Completely. Shannon nodded slowly. The issue, she said, choosing her words with surgical precision, is that the posts are disrupting the workplace. Clients have contacted us. Our social media inbox is active. My stomach tightened. So what does that mean? I asked. Ted exhaled. Effective immediately. You'll be placed on paid administrative leave while this is resolved legally. Paid. Not fired, but not trusted either. I nodded, even as something sharp lodged itself behind my ribs. When I left the building, the sun felt too bright for what had just happened. I sat in my car for a long time without turning the engine on, gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the reality that my professional life was now collateral damage in someone else's tantrum. My phone buzzed. A text from Cassian. Are you serious? You're suing me? Another. This is such a Delia move. Can't handle the truth, so you try to silence me legally. Another. You're really going to sue your boyfriend over a few posts? Pathetic. I didn't respond. Nathan's voice echoed in my head. Radio silence. Everything goes through me. That afternoon, Cassian's tone shifted. The angry text stopped. The post didn't. Instead, the narrative changed. Now I was the abuser. Now I was the vindictive ex with power and money, trying to silence a man, speaking his truth. Vanessa started a thread about slap suits, about how controlling women use the legal system to punish men who don't comply. The comments exploded with validation, and every single one of them went into my folder. That night, Nathan called. She's still posting, I said. He laughed softly. Good. Good? She's continuing after legal notice, he replied. That's not just defamation anymore. That's evidence of malicious intent. I stared at the ceiling, phone pressed to my ear. I didn't want this, I said quietly. I know, Nathan replied, but you're handling it exactly right. I hung up and sat in the dark, listening to my own breathing, realizing something I hadn't allowed myself to admit yet. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about surviving what he was trying to erase. By the end of that week, the pressure became constant. Not loud, not explosive. Just everywhere. It followed me into sleep, sat in my chest when I woke up, lingered in the pauses between breaths. The kind of stress that doesn't spike. It settles and refuses to leave. Nathan called first. He hired counsel, he said. I wasn't surprised. Who? Mackenzie Wolfe. aggressive, very online, known for reframing cases into power imbalance narratives. Of course he had. What's next? I asked. Discovery, Nathan replied. We stop reacting. We start proving. Subpoenas went out the same day. Phone records, social media archives, direct messages, every post, edit, repost, deletion attempt. Nothing selective, nothing negotiable. Nathan also named Vanessa and several of the friends who had shared the accusations as potential witnesses. Defamation by republication. That detail traveled faster than anything else. A few posts disappeared quietly overnight. Others became louder. Cassian leaned harder into the victim narrative. The cheating allegations faded into the background, replaced by something more strategic. Language about retaliation, intimidation, power. This is what happens when you speak up. She couldn't handle being called out. Now she's trying to scare me into silence. Then he launched a GoFundMe. Title, Help Me Fight a Retaliatory Lawsuit Meant to Silence Me. It raised $3,000 in 48 hours. I stared at the page longer than I should have. He lies about me, I said to Nathan later that night. Tags my employer, gets me suspended, and now he's collecting sympathy money for it. Nathan didn't sound angry. He sounded satisfied. Every dollar raised under that framing helps us, he said. He's not calling it a misunderstanding. He's calling it retaliation. That establishes intent. The legal bills on my end started stacking up too. I didn't complain, but I noticed the weight of them. This wasn't symbolic anymore. It was real, expensive, permanent. Then Thursday happened. Ted called again. Delia, he said carefully, HR needs more documentation. The situation has escalated. I felt my stomach drop. The posts have reached clients, he continued. We need to show due diligence on our end. I forwarded everything Nathan approved. Screenshots, cease and desist confirmations, proof of filing, text messages from the night of the argument where Cassian accused me of being cheap, controlling, and ruining his lifestyle. HR didn't respond right away. That silence stretched into 3 days. During that time, Cassian went on a podcast. A small one, but public. He cried, talked about betrayal, about power, about being punished for speaking his truth. Nathan recorded it, transcribed it, highlighted every false claim. He's repeating allegations after legal notice, Nathan said. That's not emotion. That's evidence. The first deposition date was scheduled. Mackenzie tried to delay it. Sudden illness, scheduling conflicts, claims that Cassian was too emotionally distressed to participate. The judge denied every request. If your client is well enough to post 17 times this week about the case, the order read, he can sit for a deposition. The balance shifted. Friends who had been loud online stopped answering Cassian's calls. Vanessa's posts became vague, defensive, carefully worded. And through it all, I stayed silent. Not passive, strategic. Because while Cassian was trying to win public sympathy, we were building something far heavier. A record, a timeline, a truth that didn't care how convincing his story sounded. The deposition was scheduled for a Tuesday. I circled the date on my calendar once, then avoided looking at it again, like naming it too often might give it power. My body didn't need reminders. I slept lightly, woke with my jaw clenched, ate without tasting anything. Cassian arrived late. Not dramatically, just enough to signal resistance. He wore a calm, practiced expression, the kind meant to suggest composure, not confidence. Victimhood, not innocence. I wasn't in the room. I didn't need to be. Nathan played the recording for me later, his voice low as he walked me through it piece by piece. Let's start simple, he said during the deposition. Mr. Rodriguez, on December 15th, you publicly posted that Delia Williams cheated on you with multiple people. Is that correct? Yes, Cassian answered. Clear, certain. And can you name those people? Silence. Not hesitation, not confusion. Nothing. Mackenzie tried to step in, objecting, reframing, buying time, but the question stayed exactly where it was. You made a specific allegation of infidelity, Nathan pressed. We're entitled to specifics. Cassian shifted in his chair. I don't remember their names. Nathan paused. You don't remember the names of the multiple people your partner of 4 years cheated with? The silence stretched again, thicker this time. As the deposition continued, the story unraveled methodically. No texts, no photos, no witnesses, no timelines. When Nathan asked why Cassian was so certain I'd cheated, something in his tone sharpened. I just knew, Cassian snapped. The way she acted about money, telling me what I could and couldn't buy. That's emotional cheating. Nathan didn't raise his voice. Mr. Rodriguez, he said evenly, are you now claiming that discussing financial boundaries is equivalent to infidelity? Mackenzie objected. Too late. That answer, on the record, shifted the case. But the real fracture came when the phone records were introduced. Months of late-night messages, flirtatious language, plans to meet that overlapped with the times Cassian claimed he was with Vanessa. One name appeared again and again. Jasmine Martinez. Who is Jasmine Martinez? Nathan asked. Cassian went still. A friend, he said. Nathan read from the screen. Can't wait to feel you again. 2:04 a.m. Mackenzie objected. The judge allowed it. Then Nathan introduced the final text, the one sent the night before the post went live. Cassian to Vanessa. She's being controlling about money again. I'm going to teach her a lesson she won't forget. Vanessa replied, remember what happened with Brittany's ex? Public shame works. Do it. I stopped the recording there when Nathan told me. Not because I was surprised, but because something inside me finally gave way. Not shattered, collapsed. The realization wasn't just that Cassian had lied. It was that he had planned it. This wasn't an emotional outburst. It wasn't pain. It wasn't confusion. It was retaliation, designed, discussed, executed. During a break, raised voices leaked through the conference room walls. Mackenzie was furious. You told me she cheated, she snapped. You said you had proof. Cassian cried. When the deposition resumed, his posture had changed. Smaller, defensive, the confidence gone. The mask didn't slip. It dissolved. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, city noise drifting in through the window. My phone lay face down on the table. For the first time since this started, I let myself feel the full weight of it. The betrayal, the exposure, the understanding that someone I loved had been willing to burn my life down to avoid accountability. This was the darkest point, not because I was losing, but because winning meant accepting exactly who he was. The shift didn't happen all at once. There was no dramatic phone call, no victory speech, no moment where the world suddenly tilted back into place. It happened quietly, inside the paperwork. 2 days after the deposition, Nathan called me early in the morning. I have updates, he said. His tone was different, focused, controlled. The kind of calm that comes when the board finally tilts in your favor. I sat at my kitchen table, mug untouched, watching sunlight creep across the floor. Cassian's employer reached out to HR yesterday, he continued. They've been following the case. I closed my eyes. Apparently, being served as a third party during discovery had triggered their own internal review. They'd examined the posts, the timelines, the contradictions, the deposition excerpts that were already circulating quietly among legal circles. A marketing firm can't afford to employ someone who publicly fabricates stories for attention, Nathan said. They terminated him this morning, cited reputational harm and dishonesty. For a moment, I didn't feel relief. I felt still, like my nervous system hadn't caught up yet. He did this to himself, Nathan added, but he's not done spiraling. That night, Cassian posted again. Lost my job today because my ex's legal vendetta. Apparently speaking your truth is a fireable offense now. He updated the GoFundMe. Now, it wasn't just for legal fees. Now it was for basic living expenses. Nathan archived it. He's continuing after material consequences, he said. That strengthens punitive damages. The truth kept surfacing, whether Cassian wanted it to or not. Vanessa was deposed next. Her tone changed immediately when the legal language landed. Suddenly, she didn't remember things. Suddenly, she'd been joking. Suddenly, she wasn't sure what Cassian meant when he said teach her a lesson. Fear has a way of clarifying loyalty. 3 weeks later, the settlement conference arrived. Mackenzie walked in confident, too confident. Her opening offer stunned me. Cassian will graciously agree to delete the posts, she said, if Delia drops the lawsuit and compensates him for emotional distress. $50,000. Nathan laughed. Out loud. Is this serious? He asked. My client has suffered immensely, Mackenzie replied. He's lost his job. Because he committed defamation, Nathan said evenly, which he admitted to under oath. He slid a folder across the table. 73 screenshots. Each post a separate count. Text showing premeditation. Deposition admissions. Evidence of actual infidelity with Jasmine Martinez. Our offer, Nathan continued, is $175,000 in damages, full coverage of legal fees, a court-ordered public retraction on every platform, and an NDA prohibiting any mention of Delia ever again. Mackenzie's smile vanished. They rejected it. A mistake. Trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later. In that time, Cassian's world continued shrinking. The GoFundMe stalled. Friends distanced themselves. Jasmine disappeared the moment lawyers got involved. And then, 3 weeks before trial, another call came. Delia, a woman said quietly, my name is Monica Martinez. My stomach dropped. I'm Jasmine's sister-in-law, she continued, and I think you should know, the affair wasn't new. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Monica brought a folder. Photos, receipts, a PI's report. 6 months, at least. Cassian had been planning his exit long before the argument about money. When Jasmine refused to leave her marriage for him, he needed someone else to blame. I'll testify, Monica said. What he did to you, he did to me too. That was the moment I finally understood. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about stopping a pattern. And for the first time since this began, I felt something unfamiliar rise in my chest. Not fear, not anger, control. Trial week arrived without ceremony. No music, no build-up. Just a courthouse that smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant, and a calendar that no longer felt abstract, it felt inevitable. Cassian arrived dressed differently than I'd ever seen him before. Conservative, muted, careful, the uniform of someone trying to look harmless. His family filled 2 rows behind him. Parents, siblings, cousins, people who had once hugged me at holidays, now watched me like I was something dangerous. His mother wouldn't meet my eyes. His father stared openly, jaw set, like anger was the only language he had left. My side was quieter. My parents, my sister, a few friends who had known the truth long before it became public. Nathan's opening statement was surgical. This case is simple, he told the jury. The defendant deliberately published false statements accusing Delia Williams of infidelity, not because it was true, but because she asked for financial accountability. He weaponized social media to punish her. We will show you the planning, the lies, and the real harm. Mackenzie painted a different picture. Cassian, she said, was a man who spoke from pain, a man who felt controlled, a man punished for sharing his emotional truth by a partner with more resources and better lawyers. This lawsuit, she said, is about silencing him. Day 1 was procedural. Day 2 was not. I testified first. Nathan walked me through everything. How we met, how money became the fault line, the night Cassian left, the morning I woke up to hundreds of notifications. I described sitting on my bed with my phone shaking in my hands, watching my name turn toxic in real time. We entered every screenshot into evidence, every tag, every escalation, every impact on my job. Mackenzie's cross-examination was sharp. Ms. Williams, she asked, isn't it true you tried to control Cassian's spending? I suggested we budget if we were planning a future, I answered. You told him he couldn't buy things he wanted. I told him maxing out credit cards while talking about buying a home wasn't sustainable. So you were controlling him financially? I was asking for responsibility, I said, not obedience. She tried again and again, but she couldn't move the one immovable fact. I had never cheated. Day 3 was Cassian's turn. He cried, spoke about intuition, about feeling betrayed, about how money discussions made him feel small. Under Nathan's cross-examination, the story collapsed. Can you name a single person Delia cheated with? Nathan asked. Silence. Do you have any evidence? No. Did you admit under oath that you planned the posts as retaliation? Cassian's voice broke. I was emotional. Were you emotional when you tagged her employer, her family? When you repeated the accusations after legal notice? He couldn't answer. Then Nathan played Jasmine Martinez's video deposition. She confirmed the affair. 6 months, hotels, plans. The courtroom went quiet. But the moment that changed everything was Monica Martinez's testimony. She spoke calmly. No theatrics, no bitterness. She told my sister-in-law she was going to ruin Delia because she was cheap, Monica said. She bragged about knowing how to hurt people through their reputations. Mackenzie objected. The judge overruled. When deliberations began, it took less than 3 hours. The verdict came back clean. Defamation per se. Malicious intent proven. $200,000 compensatory damages. $100,000 punitive damages. Cassian sobbed, loudly. His mother screamed that the system hated men. His father had to be escorted out after shouting at the judge. The judge raised a hand. There's more. Cassian was ordered to post a full public retraction and apology on every platform within 48 hours. A permanent injunction barred him from ever making public statements about me again, directly or indirectly. Any violation would mean contempt. I didn't look at him when it was over. I didn't need to. 6 months later, the noise finally stopped. Not all at once, not dramatically. It just faded. Cassian filed for bankruptcy within weeks of the verdict. Getting money from someone with no assets and no job turned out to be exactly as impossible as Nathan had predicted. I'll probably never see most of the $300,000 the jury awarded. And strangely, that was fine, because the point had never been the money. The court-ordered retraction went up exactly 46 hours after the verdict. Same text, same language, every platform. I, Cassian Rodriguez, publicly retract all statements made about Delia Williams regarding infidelity. These statements were false and made with malicious intent. I apologize for the damage caused to her reputation, career, and personal relationships. This retraction is made pursuant to court order following a defamation judgment against me. It was screenshot within minutes, shared hundreds of times. The truth doesn't go viral the way lies do, but it lingers longer. The GoFundMe was taken down after being reported for fraud. You can't fundraise off a narrative you've legally admitted was fabricated. Vanessa stopped posting anything that could be traced back to the case. Vague quotes, general advocacy, no names, legal liability has a way of sharpening people's memories. Cassian moved back in with his parents in another state. No marketing firm would touch him. No agency wanted someone legally branded as dishonest and manipulative online. Last I heard through mutual acquaintances, he was working retail and still telling anyone who would listen that he'd been destroyed for speaking up. Some stories don't survive evidence. As for me, HR reinstated me immediately after the verdict. Ted and Shannon apologized. Awkwardly. Earnestly. The company even gave me a raise, partly out of guilt, partly because my restraint during the chaos had spoken louder than any press release ever could. My reputation didn't just recover, it solidified. People knew now that when my name was attacked, I didn't scream back. I documented, I waited, I acted. Dating has been interesting. Some men see me as the woman who sued her ex. Others see me as someone who refused to let lies define her. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm rebuilding friendships that were shaken during the blast radius. I'm learning what quiet feels like again. My mother still brings Cassian up at family dinners, shaking her head like she can't believe someone could be so cruel and so foolish at the same time. My sister jokes that I should frame the verdict and hang it in the hallway. Maybe I will. Nathan still calls it one of his favorite cases, clear-cut defamation, clean documentation, a defendant who couldn't stop incriminating himself. He uses it now as a teaching example for younger attorneys about the power of screenshots, timestamps, and restraint. The lesson is simple. If someone decides to destroy your reputation with lies, don't fight them on social media. Don't perform for the court of public opinion. Document everything. Hire a good attorney. Let consequences do the talking. Cassian thought tears and hashtags would protect him from accountability. He thought framing himself as the victim would give him immunity. He was wrong. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting justice. And sometimes justice doesn't look like shouting. It looks like silence, followed by a verdict that speaks for itself.